Hey Ashwin, so nice to have you today. How are you?
Doing great, Neha. Thank you for having me on this. I really appreciate it.
All right, so for all our listeners, tell us about you. Who is Ashwin?
So, my name is Ashwin Bhadri. I am a serial entrepreneur. Over the last 18 years, I have started 15 different businesses. I have shut down six. I have sold two. Currently, own and operate seven different ventures. Our largest company is called Equinox Labs. We have about 1,500 people in there. And our smallest company is like a five people company. And we have a lot of things in between. I spend almost 95% of my time in Equinox Labs for a simple reason is because it has the maximum impact, right? People wise, society wise, we're able to do a lot of good. Hence, I spend most of my time there, and it's highly scalable, and the impact quotient is very high. So I'll end up spending most of my time there. And yeah, that's just a little bit about me.
That's interesting. The first thing that came to my mind right now was if you are running seven businesses, how are you actually spending your time and priorities around it? Because I'll tell you honestly, I try to do two or three things and I find myself like, where should I really be? And it's good that you have that clarity of this is where my impact is and this is where 95% of my time is. But then what I'm thinking is running the other six probably requires a lot of people that you trust and who are as motivated and invested in your causes as you want them to be.
So I think the secret sauce, according to me, is a threefold. The three ingredients of the secret sauce. The first, without a doubt, is people. Right? You have to get a great set of folk who believe in the same things you believe in. They have the same value structure and who are highly motivated. Right? And motivation can come from multiple things. Motivation can be money, it can be growth, it can be power, whatever it is. So a key is to figure out what motivates whom and seeing can I offer that to that person, and am I tapping into that person's passion? Because if you hire somebody just because of their degree, but they're not passionate about what they do, you're not going to get great results, right? But if you hire somebody irrespective of their degree, but you hire them in their focus area of their passion, where they love doing what they do, right?
Uh-huh.
Where they wouldn't do it if it was free, they would still do it because they love it so much. If you are able to turn their passion into a profession, now you've unlocked some magic, right? So first is people. Second is setting up processes which are repeatable, which are scalable, which are monitorable, which are auditable, and making those processes stronger every time there's a mistake. And trust me, there are a lot of mistakes. Every
Uh-huh.
time there's a mistake, the process becomes stronger. So whenever there's a mistake, it's not about, oh, the person messed up. Hey, what can we do in the process so when somebody does this, it doesn't break, right? There's something else to catch it or something else to prevent it, right? So creating those processes, robust, scalable processes is absolutely key. And last, but definitely not the least, is culture, right?
Uh-huh.
Anyone who asks me, hey, Equinox is very successful, what's the one thing? I don't say people, I don't say process, I say culture. Because I think culture is a good mix of
Of-
people, processes, and the whole experience that you're able to offer your teammates. Because that is finally what defines what you do as a company, what you do as people. And if teammates are happy, if they are given a lot of freedom, if they're taught what they need to learn, right? And they know what are the skills required, you're making sure they have the skills. You obviously hire them for their will, right? And then you allow them to function without interrupting. I think that's
yeah.
what creates, right? So how we're able to scale and how we're able to do multiple things, it's people, process, and culture.
That's interesting. The word culture is very loaded. In my opinion, it's very loaded and it can mean different things for different people. And so, to put things in perspective, I think you said your culture is giving people the right degree of autonomy and connecting it with their passions. But what else? I mean, how do you? There has to be like this trial and error to get to that culture. How have you gotten to this culture?
18 years of mistakes. So I think personally, my failures have taught me more than my
Mhm.
successes, right? Because every time we failed, we figured out why we failed. Now we
Yeah,
failed because we did the wrong business. We did it the wrong set of people. We were not able to set the right culture. We were not able to set the right processes. It's always been one of these things that has gone wrong, right? Having the humility to understand that, hey, you know what, we didn't get it right this time. It's okay. It's okay to shut down. It's okay to restart. Uh, I've shut down six businesses. But those businesses, 3 of them have restarted a few years later in a completely new form, but with those lessons from what was failed, like how we failed, why we failed, right?
So if I
So
may ask you,
those lessons, turning those lessons into your pillars of success. So that's one way of doing it.
yeah, that's I think so crucial. So if I may ask you, what's your favorite failure, Ashwin?
Ooh, so many. So
I
I
ask
think
this because, I ask
uh,
this because, I was reading a Ray Dalio
mm,
book, Principles of Work. It must be somewhere here. I'm sure you must
mm,
have heard
mm,
about it. Yeah, Ray Dalio, yeah. And what he said is when in 1979, he had predicted that the US market would come crashing down because they had lent a lot of money to outside countries like Mexico and, all of these countries. Um, and then in 1982, that happened. Mexico defaulted on its payment. And he was called into the Senate because he had predicted this 2, 3 years ago to, give his opinion about what happens next and how do you deal with this best.
mm,
And when he went there,
mm.
he spoke with a lot of confidence and even like arrogance about what he thought was going to happen. That market was going to come crashing down. That did not happen. The market actually flourished. They found a way through, and all of the money that he had invested thinking Bridgewater, right? All of the money that he had invested thinking that that's going to happen. Actually, he lost all of the money. He came down to he let all his people go and all of these fun things. And from there, that he calls that his favorite failure. And from there, what he did was he learned that he cannot be an autonomous decision maker. He cannot always be right. And so he brought a system of really good analytical, data driven, algorithmic decision making that involved other people. And it was such an interesting one to read. And I think that is what he calls his favorite failure. And now it brings me back to what's your favorite failure? What's given you the biggest impact?
I think one of my favorite failures, and which I think is very public also, that's why I'll talk a little bit more about it. And it's also allowed us to scale quite a bit after our lesson. About 10 years ago, we launched something called Hygiene Shield, right? The concept of Hygiene Shield was that we would audit restaurants.
Uh-huh.
And if your restaurant passed, we would give you a physical steel shield which says Hygiene Shield with your name on it, and it goes behind your reception so everyone can see it. And I'm like, oh, this is 100% going to work, right? Like, of course, food safety is important.
Sounds like a cool
FSSAI is,
idea to me right now.
pardon me?
It does sound like a cool idea even to me right now.
Right. So the idea was that's the concept that we will certify your hygiene, right? So that if you're spending money keeping your space hygienic, we should be able to show it to the customers, right? So we did a big thing. We came up with an app, we came up with a checklist, we created auditors, we did all the training, we spent tons, lakhs and lakhs on marketing it. Not even 10 people bought it. So it was a very huge, massive failure. And when I analyzed, hey, why did it fail? Right? I spoke to everyone who didn't buy it. And even people who bought it did not renew it, right? Whatever, 8, 9 people who bought it did not even renew it. So they were like, 1 second, when somebody's already come into my restaurant, that shield adds no value because the person's already here, right? If they had
Oh,
seen it before, and because of that, people came. If it increased footfall, it would make sense. So it's a very small learning, but it was a very major learning for me. A few years later, I took that same concept to Zomato because Zomato had the platform. And we created the concept of the same hygiene shield. They didn't call it hygiene shield. It was like a blue, a safety shield that they offered for audits, that restaurants that went for the audit and passed, right? We were able to do it at scale. We did lakhs of restaurants, right? And here's the fun part. The ROI on the money that they spent on the hygiene audit was almost 10 times more than the ads. So every restaurant wanted to do it because it drove more traffic to this thing. So a study that a few of the aggregators did, 26% more people came to a restaurant with a hygiene shield than one without, which was very interesting. But that one insight that we learned when this hygiene shield failed, that hey, people need to see before, gave us the insight of partnering up with Zomato, Swiggy, Dine Out, all the aggregators at that time, saying that hey, we're offering the service, we already know how to do audits, we're one of the biggest names, we already have the auditors, we have the tech, we have everything ready, right? You just need to push it. So that allowed us to, and a lot of other smaller learnings from that same activity allowed us to make this a huge success later on. So that's
wow.
one of my favorite stories.
It is a really interesting one. So would you say, like, in this, when you were initially launching it, you hadn't done enough of a survey or questioning people, or what do people really want kind of work?
That is another lesson from the same fiasco, right? Many a times we create products and services here. We create them in boardrooms. We create them in isolation, right?
Yeah.
Today, anytime we're going to launch something, I personally will speak to anywhere between 50 to 100 potential customers, talk to them as if the product or service is already there. Like as if I already have it, it's already ready.
Yeah.
Right? Like, hey, we're launching this. This is what what it does. This is how much it's priced at. Here are the bells and whistles. Here are the benefits. Here are the features. Blah blah blah. Do you want to buy it? And I hear very closely why they say no. If somebody says yes, I ask them why yes. If they say
Mhm.
no, I ask why no. We go back to the drawing board, make those changes, come back again next time, one more round, till at least the majority are saying yes and they're okay at the price point we're going to launch at. This allows us to ensure that there is less failure, right?
Yeah.
While this is a proven method, it's also slower.
It
So there are some
is.
times still we will take a punt on a thought. And I think our intuition has just gotten a little better. So our failure rate of our punts are not as bad as they used to. So I think it's just, when people say gut, oh, my gut told me. It's
Mhm.
basically your past failures. You're just not able to recount which failure. That's what becomes gut, right? Gut is where all your past failure lessons are stored in your gut. It's just that you're
In
not
your
able to
body.
recount which mistake you learned this from. It comes out from your gut. So, and that goes for people, businesses, everything, right? So when you meet people also, suddenly you're like, oh, this person seems dodgy, or this person, this deal seems dodgy. It's because your gut is telling you, because something has happened in the past that you can't remember and you think it's coming from your gut. It's just past failures.
Yeah, they say anyway, all of our emotions, thoughts do get stored in our body in some way. And there is muscle memory, and all of this, I think, is somehow related to the emotional feelings you've gone through when you went through the failure.
Absolutely.
And, and still, sometimes we can't tune into it. Yeah.
But people who can benefit tremendously.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. They're more in tune with their bodies and all, like, yeah, agree 100%. So, when you were speaking about all this, it made me think about all the effort and the money that goes into a failure. Like, effort, sweat, blood, all of that.
Tears, lot of tears.
Years, right? A lot of time that you've decided to spend on this that is taken away from family time, all of that goes into a failure. And while that is non-renewable, definitely, even the money, while renewable, is precious resource.
Oh,
And ha- to be able to launch 15 businesses, has it taken you a lot of capital, or have you been able to say, or now you work with so many entrepreneurs, do you see all these people coming there with their own capitals, or have you found a smart way of doing things over and over?
so I think if you can start a business without capital, always do that, right? I know so many startups nowadays because I mentor a lot of startups. I used to be an angel investor in a few, so I'm still very much connected to the startup ecosystem. I know so many founders who would be like, "Oh, I'll start the business with other people's money." I don't think that is the smartest thing to do, unless it's a very capex heavy business. So, for example, if I want to start making batteries for cars, oh, I can't start that with 2 lakh rupees. I will require at least 50 crores, right? So
Mhm.
that I can't start making in a garage and start selling. So some
Right.
businesses are always capital intensive to start with, right? But there are so many other businesses, product and service based that do not require very high capital to start with. If your business is one of them, first be able to succeed by yourself. Create that box in which if you put a rupee at this end, the other end, 2 rupees falls out, right? Then you
Mhm.
take the 1 rupee profit again, you put it back here, another 2 rupees falls out. When you're able to do this again and again, in a proven way, now is the best time to go raise money because now you'll be like, hey, I can continue doing this and I'll keep making, 1 rupee at a time. Or hey, you can put in 10 rupees and now we can make more money together. That's, I think, one of the best ways to make it happen, right? If somebody's like, oh, I'm going to raise money and oh, I'll figure out on the way how to,
Yeah.
build the parachute. While I've jumped out of the plane, I'm figuring out how to build the parachute. May not always be the smartest way. But sometimes you just don't have a choice because you don't have the money, your vision is too big, and it's a risk you take, right? If there are people who are willing to bet on you, because see, when you invest in startups, you're actually not investing in the company. You're investing in
And
the founders, right?
yeah,
So if you're able to prove your ability to scale, your ability to see the future, your ability to create a great culture, your ability to build an organization, because building an organization is not a simple thing to do, right? If you're able to convince somebody that, hey, give me these 5 crores, give me these 10 crores, and I'm going to build this. This is my vision, and here is why I know I'm capable
yeah.
of doing this, right? Then great. But if you don't, it's okay. It's okay to build a business without raising money. It's okay not to have VCs. It's okay not to have people backing you. It's fine, because today it's almost become like a cool thing, like, oh, I raised a round. While that may be fine, it also comes with its own set of pressures. It also comes with its own set of issues, because
Yeah.
tomorrow, what if you had a bad partner? What if the person who invested you is pushing you to do things to grow faster, which may be not very ethical? Now what do you do, right? Or they're pushing your business in a direction that you don't want to take. Now what do you do? They have a board seat, they have 2 board seats, they have 3 board seats, they can outvote you. So it starts going down a slippery slope, right? So if you're ever partnering with somebody, there are a lot of people who will give you money, by the way. Money access is now a lot more easier than it used to be. Partner with somebody who aligns with your vision. Even if the valuation they give you is a little lower, it's fine. But they need to be a partner. They can't just be somebody who cuts your checks and they're like, oh, in 3 years, I want a 10x exit. You all figure out what you want. Those are not the best people, right? You want somebody who is in the trenches with you, who's helping you make connections, who's helping you think differently, right? Showing you different avenues. I think those are the best partners to have. And that's when you find that kind of partner, is the right time to, get that partner as an investor.
It's interesting how everything most often comes down to people. It just comes down, like, even in how you have scaled, a big portion has been finding those people, developing those people, bringing those people together. When you're starting a business, it's that. It often is that. And I'm in corporate, right? I work a corporate job, and I'm telling you, even in corporate tech jobs, it is still always coming down to people. So, Ashwin, as a person, right? I mean, a lot of our childhood experiences, a lot of our surroundings, our experiences make us. What has made you, like, you, the person you are, that puts you in a position to think like this, to win like this, like to just have a seat at this table, which is something you've earned for yourself?
I think a huge influence comes from the people in your life, right? And I
Yeah.
think the biggest influence on me would be my parents. Because
Hmm.
when I was growing up, they had a company that they started, they scaled. And I was, right from a kid, our dinner table conversations used to be about business. Right from my oldest memory, we're sitting at the dining table, they're discussing work, right? Right from a very young age, like 9, 10, my dad is asking me, like, hey, this happened in office, what do you want to, what would you do? Like, so that always inculcated, like, so me being an entrepreneur was like a most obvious thing for me, right? While I'm saying that, he had also told me, I want you to work in different places, so you understand different cultures, you understand different things, and you're then able to apply it in your own business. So I studied computer science in UT Austin. I did my MBA from there, from Account School of Business. The final takeaway from all that, from tech, studying computer science, doing an MBA, wasn't the actual things they taught you. It's how to think that you learn from there, right? I
Yeah.
remember the first class in IIMA. The professor says, "How many of you have come here looking for answers?" Whole batch puts up the hand. Hey, we want answers. They're like, you're in the wrong place. We are not going to give you answers. We're going to teach you how to find the answers, right? How do you work together? How do you present? How do you brainstorm? How do you troubleshoot? How do you problem solve? So having those set of people, having education is only one thing. I'm
Hmm.
not a big believer that, oh, if you come from a big name school, that makes you successful. No, the people who are surrounding you at that point in time, right?
Yeah.
Something that the professor taught you, not the fact, but how he taught you, the learning, because he said something, you learned something different. Those learnings, if you're able to apply in business, right? The people around you, they motivate you. So we all have heard the saying, right? Show me your 5 friends, I'll show you your future, right?
Yeah.
Which has been true for a long time. But one of my friends told me a different version of the same thing. He said, show me your feed of social media and I'll show you your future. Which is
Ooh, that's a good one.
because guess what? Today, you and I both spend more time on a feed than with our friends, right? So if you're going through your feed and you see cat videos, dog videos, dancing videos, that's what your passion is, right? But you see motivational videos, you see workout videos, you see AI, tech news, whatever, then that's what your passion is, right? That's something that most likely you're going to be good at, right? So it's literally show me your future, show me your future. So I think what you consume in terms of content, the kind of people you hang around with, right? And good education. I'm not saying a big name education, good education, good teachers, good mentors have made me who I am. And of course, I wouldn't. A large part of that goes to my parents because they've basically taught me a few
Yeah.
core values, my personal core values, right? Which make me who I am. Of course, my family, my wife, my kids, they teach me new things all the time. Huge source of motivation, right? I'm probably more motivated now to be more successful because I know that two little things watching me. And if
Yeah.
about 7 years ago, I'd hired a consultant, and the first thing he asked me, he went around the entire leadership team. He said, "What motivates you? Motivates you?" Came to me, and for me, it wasn't money, fame, fortune was not there. I'm like, hey, I want to be a good role model for my kids. And I'd never actually thought about it till he asked me. And then it struck me. I'm like, one sec, that's actually, I want to be a great role model for my kids, right? So as my kids grow up, they're going to watch. I can tell them whatever. But if I'm not following it, I can't tell them get up early and, get up at 9 o'clock. Doesn't work. I get up at 5:30 every day. My son gets up at 5 because he knows, hey, dad's also going to be up. He puts his own alarm. He's 11. He puts his
Wow.
own alarm, gets up before me because sometimes we have this thing like, who'll get up first, right? And you have to lead by example. And by the same with kids, the same thing applies in your company. If you want to be a leader, you have to have those characteristics that you want your teammates to follow. I can't tell people, oh, you should stay calm and collected, and I'm losing my shit all the time. That doesn't work, right? If I want my leaders, I want my teammates to be calm and collected, I need to be calm. Right? For example, in Equinox, any of the Equinox companies, you're not allowed to abuse. You're just not allowed to abuse, no matter what, no matter how frustrated you are, because that's the culture, right? You should have the mental fortitude of being able to, you can get angry, you're not allowed to abuse, right? So because I am that way, I want my leaders to be that way. My leaders are that way. Since me and my leaders are that way, all my teammates are that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, these small things actually come back to culture. So again, something that I've learned that, has made me successful, people, education, having mentors in your life, all these things help, prepare a person for success.
So you said dinner table conversations were about business and decisions and fun challenges that your father was facing at work. But was your mother also involved in all of
Yeah,
this? Like, was it
yeah.
like your mother?
They ran the company together.
See, that is so good. Yeah. Um, and I feel
So
like
even my wife is my business partner. So
she is. How
even
lovely.
our dinner table conversations are a lot about. So like in the pandemic, we were literally in like confined to four walls for a couple of years, right?
Yeah.
In that time, we launched some new products. So my
Mhm.
son used to actually see me work, right? Because I'm working from the next room. He's running his class from his room. He comes to my room. He sees me working. He sees me talking about this product. So he started inquiring, oh, Daddy, how is Nutripedia doing? Daddy, how is, Bangalore Lab doing? How is this doing? How is that initiative going? Because he was involved literally from day one when that product or service was being conceived. He knows what it is. He understands concept of profitability, understands concept of scale, right? So he's always like, till date he checks in on me, like, oh, Daddy, how's that thing going? You launched it months ago. How's that going? Is that doing well? Is it ROI positive? Is it this, that? And obviously he'll throw in his own jargon as well, right? But see now, both my kids have exposure to that right from a young age. Like, how do you
Yeah.
run a business? What is profitability? What is leadership? What is growth mindset? What is fixed mindset, right? So what are traits of a good leader? Like they literally hear, like this is like dinner table conversation, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The books that they're exposed to is very different because those are the kind of books flying around. They're all on leadership, they're all on entrepreneurship. So if I told him, hey, go read this book, he wouldn't read it. It happens to be lying next to my table. He'll come one day, he'll pick it up. The other
Yeah.
day, I'm seeing him read a book on startups and metrics that startups need to try,
Yeah.
right?
It's so
So
natural. It
it's
doesn't feel
exposure.
like work. It doesn't feel, it almost becomes like one difference that some adults feel like work and fun are separate things. But I think work, unless that becomes so fun for you, cannot really drive that passion or impact that you're. And I think that's what happens for kids. They don't see it as work. They see it as way of life. They see it as part of fun, and that's how it all comes together.
So that's something my dad taught me very early on. He's like, hey, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. So
Mm-hmm.
today, even on a Sunday afternoon, I'll be on my iPad, I'll be doing something. People, if they look from outside, it'll look like work, but I'm having fun. I'm like learning about vertical farming. I'm learning about new things in AI. Maybe I'm responding to emails, but for me, that is fun. It's not work. It's not like, oh my God, I have to go and do this. I love what I do. And by that, that's one of the secrets of being successful is you have to love what you do, no matter what you're. You may be working somewhere, you may be having your own company or working anywhere. If you don't love what you do, your chance of success is almost nil. Because to be successful, you have to put in a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and it doesn't make sense. People will not do it unless they love what they do. So that.
Right. And Ashwin, I became a techie out of necessity. I'll tell you this. My story is I always wanted to be a doctor. Okay. When I was, my dad is also an entrepreneur. My mom was also working with him. I grew up
Nice.
in a similar setting.
Nice.
But I had a group of friends who's growing up, whose parents were all doctors.
Hmm.
And they were family friends, and I used to see them a lot. And I always felt their world was so much more interesting, like because because parents used to be doctors, and they were out at night, and I used to hear stories of surgery.
Hmm.
Like instead of business stories, they were like stories of people who got better or had complications, and those kind of stories that I used to hear on their dinner tables. And I wanted to be a doctor. And a turn of fate, my dad's business collapsed right around my 10th, 12th time. Of course, he found his way back later, but in that moment, his business had collapsed. And he actually had a conversation with me about, I don't know how to fund your education. You need to figure this out on your own, dude.
Wow. Okay, that's a tough.
And yeah, it was a tough one. And he told me, what I can do is I can expose you to a few people who can show you paths, that there are paths to do this on your own. And I can expose you to those people, and then we'll figure it out from there. But right in this moment, this is the reality of our life, and we need to accept it and find a way to grow from here. And so, um, the most logical path seemed to be to not go the medical route, do something else, right? And so I decided, okay, I'm going to be an engineer. Who cares? I'm smart. I'll do good wherever I go. And I struggled through the first 2-3 years of working. I enjoyed my college life because that's fun. I enjoy learning. The first 2-3 years of working were miserable for me. And I was almost like, what have I done? And how do I get out of here? But that was short sighted. It was only because I didn't really understand my work. I didn't really still see or find joy in it. But I kept at it for a little bit. And it turned out, I think that was the best thing that happened for me. That was like, I'm so grateful that I'm not a doctor today because I have a level of health anxiety that I couldn't have dealt with my patients. And
I can
I love
understand that.
my job. So sometimes that love that we say, we think it comes, it just has to be there. But I think sometimes we need to cultivate it. I think we need to have an active role in loving our work, you know?
So it's all about perspective, right?
Yes.
So many times people think that, oh, if you're an entrepreneur, you're doing everything you love all the time is what you love doing. No, checking emails is not always fun, right? Uh, Doing exit interviews is not fun. Sometimes deciding to let people go is not fun. Reprimanding people is not fun. Having to deal with angry customers is not fun because when you're a founder, you are where the buck stops for a lot of these things, right? You're the one who has to take the toughest calls. You have to be the one saying no to so many people. There's so many. I think I say no more than I say yes because the kind of requests that come, can we do this? Can we? No, man, no, can't because of X, Y, Z, right? So
And that
sometimes.
probably is also a part of your secret sauce.
So the ability to say no and the ability to have difficult conversations is a huge indicator of success. I know so many people who say yes because uncomfortable to say no. I know so many people that allow something wrong or bad or little bad to continue because they don't want to have that ugly conversation. They don't want to have that difficult conversation, right? But it's all about difficult conversations, all about saying no. By the way, it's also saying no to work, the different kind of work. Because see, if you want to grow, you have to be able to focus, right?
Exactly.
Today, on a daily basis, we say no to anywhere between 2 to 5 different kinds of projects, customers, things we say no because it's not scalable. It's not our focus. It's not what we're working towards, right? But having that ability to understand, hey, that this is our focus area, anything outside is a distraction. And hey, we may lose some revenue, it's fine, but we'll be able to do what we're doing much better. So that requires a little bit of maturity, a little bit of understanding of scale. What are the things you need to do to scale? So you can't scale by doing everything. Then you just become a jack of all trades, right? You may not be able to do, you're not able to grow it. You'll just become, wide, a mile wide, but inch deep. You want to go a mile high, but an inch wide, right? So that's the
Yeah.
difference of scale.
I have a coach,
Mm,
and she recently told me,
mm,
here's your problem, Neha. And I'm happy to publicly admit, right? Here's your problem, Neha. The problem is not that you're trying to do 10 things. The
mm,
problem is that you want to be the best at 10 things. You need to find your one thing. I think you found Ecolabs as your one thing that you're really good at, and that's 95% of your time. But she was like, one thing you can be best at, or you could devote a lot of time to. Other things you do for fun, for curiosity. If they work, they work. They don't work, they don't work. But it is stupid that you want to be extremely good, and you're just burdening yourself and killing yourself. And it just stuck with me. Yes, I was being stupid. So you're right. The focus, right?
I'm a podcaster, right? I have three different podcasts. I am not the best at it, and I'm perfectly fine. I'm starting out. I'm an amateur, not even a mid-range player. I'm an amateur in that space. And I make mistakes. Me and my team make mistakes every single podcast. There is some mistake. Something or the other has gone wrong, but it's perfectly fine. It is okay not to be perfect. So
Yeah,
progress over perfection is
yeah,
one of my mantras, literally progress over perfection. Right? If we
yeah,
had waited for the perfect podcast, perfect this day, we would have never launched today. Today we got like 70, 80 of them. Every one of them has a mistake. Every single one has a mistake. Right? Something has gone wrong. Something broke. There's a time when the mic didn't work. My mic didn't work. I interviewed somebody very senior. I know I'm not going to get him again. And my mic didn't work. Now, what do? I can't call him back. So we actually had to fake the entire conversation where I'm acting like he's sitting in front of me a week later because that's when he figured out it didn't work. So now we have like, backup mics. We have like 2, 3 mics so that doesn't happen again. So it's all a learning. There's never a one thing does work. You have to figure stuff out.
but I almost feel like now if I go back and listen to your podcast, I wouldn't even know that you made these mistakes, or like those mistakes are so yours. um that's what they are.
Yeah.
There is this filter though of the reason why we often don't want to make mistakes is because log kya kahenge, what will somebody think of me, how will I be perceived, like what does this speak about me if I fail at this. And as long as you are able to sort through those
Issues,
feelings, issues,
feelings.
feelings, yeah, you get to
So
the other
I think the best way to handle that is
side.
by
Hmm.
telling people about it. Like you own it, you wear it like a patch on your sleeve. Right? Now, whenever I introduce myself, before I tell you I sold something or how many things I run, I actually start by telling you how many things I failed at. Right?
Yeah,
Because I publicly talk about it, it can't be used to blackmail me. It can't put me in shame because I'm only telling you about it. I'm putting it
yeah,
out in the open right up front. Like, hey, here's what I failed. Here's how much money I burned. Here's how much we lost. Right? That does two things. One, it normalizes failure. Now, as a entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur, or even as a leader, or even as somebody working somewhere, if you are able to normalize failure, you will take more risks. You will try new things. And it's those risks and new things that will help you to scale faster, even if you're working somewhere. If you're working in an environment where any mistake, you're publicly yelled at, or you have fear of losing your job, guess what you're going to do? You're not going to try anything new. You're just going to go down the beaten path. You're not going to risk your neck, right? Like, why should I risk mine? Like, what's in it
yeah,
for me? I'm just going to end up losing my job. At Equinox, what we've done is we've created a culture called fail forward fast. I look for those failures. We ask people, hey, what did you fail at last week? The reason is if you failed at something, you tried something. Two, we publicly discuss our failures in our innovation meetings in a round robin fashion. We discuss our failures, right? And the best way to get it started is to share your own. Because I remember the first time I did this, and I was like, okay, guys, now onwards, we're going to actually discuss failures in innovation meetings. Nobody spoke. First time, nobody spoke. Second time, nobody spoke. I'm like, one second, why is nobody? Then I just realized human psychology. They feel that, oh, how will it look? Oh, what will I get yelled at? Then I started third meeting. I started sharing my failures. Hey guys, last week I did this, and we lost the deal because of what I did. I did this tactic, and it just completely bombed. Right? Or we did this, and this is what happened. Then slowly, people start opening up. But today it's a norm because any meeting you come to, people will say, "Oh, yesterday we did this. Oh shit, we lost followers." Like I remember one very funny story on social media, right? Twitter. I had reached 15 or 20,000 followers on Twitter. And I kept a software which, if you followed me, I would follow you back. Right? It was an automation then. This is
yeah.
I'm talking about like almost like 8, 9 years ago. And that's the time my first social media teammate had joined. First guy I had hired as my social media thing. So he came and told me, he's like, boss, you are now Twitter arty. I'm like, what the hell is Twitter arty? He's like, no, if you're more than 10,000 followers, you're Twitter arty. I was like, okay, I honestly don't care. Then he's like, no, it looks really bad. You're following all these people. I found this new software which will unfollow people. I said, I do what you want. It doesn't make it. Because I used to literally put out quotes. I wasn't doing business over there. I was to just any quote I like, I used to share the quote over there, right? So he started unfollowing people. And 2 weeks later, he comes back and he's almost in tears. I'm like, hey, what happened? He's like, hey, your follower count fell down to some 5,000. It's like, why? What happened? He's like, the same time that he was doing this, another software had launched that if I unfollowed you, you would unfollow me back. All these people who unfollowed me back. But he was in tears, right? But I told him, you know what? It doesn't matter. It's just a number. It's just for my. See, all these numbers, they're just literally ego numbers. They have no translation in real life about wealth, success, happiness, joy, nothing, right? One of my friends, she put it, in a different way. She has million plus followers on Instagram. So she's like, Instagram followers is like monopoly money in real life. It means nothing, right? Unless you do something with it. See, if I was a social media influencer, I'm making money on those followers, yes, then it makes a difference, right? I'm not a social media influencer. I don't make money from posts and sponsored posts and all. It doesn't matter if 5 people follow, 500 people follow, 50,000 people follow. It doesn't make a difference in our day-to-day life, right? So, but for some people it does. But that, when I told that guy, he was almost sure he's going to get fired. I'm like, it's okay. And he's like, what do you mean it's okay? I'm like, it's fine. It's a mistake. It happens. It could have happened with me. I could have thought of the exact same thing and I would have done the exact same thing as you, right? If I knew what Twitter RT was, I would have done the same thing, right? That guy grew. He was almost heading our social media team till a few years, right? So my point is, but that culture of it's okay to make mistakes is so important. By the way, I should have said that as one of the success pillars is, and by the way, it becomes part of culture, is the culture to fail. And it should be fine. It should be normalized.
Yeah. But here's the thing, how do you develop an ethic to say, go fail, but only fail on doing the same thing once? You can't do the same mistake over and over. That's not a mistake. It's a habit. Yeah. So how do you walk that thread?
Okay. So the way we look at it is simple. Anytime we try something new, we give it a name, right? It's called a special project. We literally give it a name, like Titan or
Yeah.
what. It's literally given a special project name. It's given a budget. It's given a timeline. It's given a success metric. If in that experiment, if you fail, perfectly fine. No worries, right? But then you have something called BAU, business as usual, which is your main line of work, right? Where there are set processes. There you can't suddenly start like, I can't have my chemist be like, oh, instead of 100 ml, let me use 5 ml and see what happens for a test. No, but there is an SOP. There's a government approved method that you have to follow. So there are some places where you cannot innovate, right? Which is your BAU has to be right 100% of the time. But in your experiment, you can be wrong 100% of the time. It's fine because it's an experiment, right? For now, a place where a lot of mistakes are allowed and happen is social media or marketing, right? We do so many different things and a lot of them fail. And it's perfectly fine because we knew it was an experiment. But at the
Yeah.
same time, we have BAU there, we have PPC ads, we have certain things that are working really well for us where we do not experiment. That is proven, that will continue to happen. There are always other places where we play around. So that is how you kind of, put the line between business as usual and experiment. So we call special projects innovation in motion. Because earlier, we used to discuss innovation. So we should try this, we should do that. That's great. I had an Excel file with, or a Google sheet with, I think, 1,000 plus ideas. I'm like, what are we doing with these ideas? We're not doing anything. People are just listing, oh, this would be a great idea. Hey, how about we put some, let's put our money where our mouth is. Let's do something with it, right?
Yeah.
So that's when special projects started. And a lot of the special projects now have become services that we offer, products that we sell, which now have become businesses.
That's very interesting. Because when I think of it, I work a corporate job, like I said, there are a lot of BAU. But I think we need to take a step back and say, this is BAU, but can be improved. This is BAU, but can be done better. And so, yeah, I think for me personally, I feel like you can do the exact same mistake once. You got to learn from it. You got to bring your learnings to yourself, to the team, to a larger audience. And then you got to say, this mistake is never going to happen again because I know these things and this will not I will again fail in a different way. but not the same way. I have to
100%.
find 100 ways to fail, but I cannot be failing in the same way 3 times.
So what we do is when there are failures like this, and there are failures like this very often,
Yeah.
right? We update our process to catch for it. We update something that, hey, if this person is doing this and hey, this happened, but nobody is there to check it. How do we check it, right? Or the person did this because he wasn't trained to do it. It just, there was no process around how to do it. And this came and he didn't know, and he just did his best, right? Or it becomes a process. It becomes a training step. It becomes a training video. It becomes a training time, right? So
Yeah.
that people don't make the same mistake again. And it's okay for a person to repeat his mistake. Again, a second teammate shouldn't repeat the same mistake. Like, oh, you made the same mistake. I can't do it again because I know you made a mistake and I know, and if you shared it publicly, now I know how to handle the situation, right? So
Yeah.
next time it happens, I know, hey, this is how you handle this, right? So I think that public sharing of failures prevents the same mistake from being repeated across the org or across a team at least. So morning huddles is like a mandate across all the teams, right?
Mm-hmm.
We start the huddle with, hey, what was positive of the day, yesterday, today, what are you looking forward to? But we also always share what is the learning from yesterday. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what if something went wrong? Not always something went wrong, but something I learned could be from something that went wrong or something I found a better way of doing, which you share with everybody else. So everybody can, get better faster together.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. So, Ashwin, I've learned so much from you in today's conversation. Small nuggets here and there. But I think what I'm really walking away with is that entrepreneurship is a mindset, it is leadership, it is all, and it's not so different from what we do in corporate world, because I think within large setups you have small units which function like smaller companies just starting out, smaller ideas just taking
Mhm.
life. And so the worlds do cross quite a bit. But your immense experience in that and your process heavy mindset and your automation heavy mindset is something to really drive. I also loved how you shared about the dinner table conversations and how your kids are inspired. So you were inspired by your parents, you're inspiring your kids, and that's how like the whole world one day is going to like feel propagation of all the lovely inspiration we have out there. So before we close out, is there something lovely, inspirational you'd like to leave us with? Something, a thought, a quote, principle?
I think, let me share a life hack that has
Ooh.
worked for me really well, right?
Okay, I love
And
life hacks.
even if 1 in 100 people listening to this follow this, I know I've done something good. This is something I've been doing for a decade, right? Before I sleep every night, I need to write down one thing I learned that day. And when I say learned, I don't mean about business. It can be personal, it can be professional, it can be about health, wellness, people, anything, something new that I learned that day. Like literally in my lessons, there is a recipe for jeera rice. So it can literally be rice. There is like fluffy pancakes in there, and like 9 different ways of making French toast is also in there, right? So it's very, very cooking heavy as well at many a times. But it's also about something new you discovered about yourself. It could be a trait, it could be whatever. But the fact that you're writing it down, right? And then over time reviewing those is something that compounds at the highest level, right? I've been doing this for a decade now. And trust me, this one habit is something I teach by the every Equinox in any meeting I have with any Equinoxins, especially when a new bunch come in, or if I'm meeting an entire team after a long time, I will kind of reiterate this habit and drill it into their head that, hey, every single day, note one new thing that you learn. And by the way, here's the day. There are days, it's 11:30 at night, and I haven't learned a new thing. When I look, I'm like, I'm not able to answer that question. I'm like, what did I learn? I actually didn't learn anything new. I still have half an hour to learn something new. And today's day and age, a new lesson is literally a click away, right? The phone in your hand is more powerful, one of the most powerful devices ever made. You're a click away from learning whatever you want. I have notes on vertical farming. I have notes on precision fermentation. I have notes on how do you do an AI audit of your company, right? So completely diverse things, obviously in the areas of interest, right? I'm like, my notes were not going to have something from the Mughal period. I learned something because that's not my area of interest. My area of interest is leadership, is people, is mentorship, is entrepreneurship, is AI tech. That's my backyard, right? So most of my things, by the way, in cooking and dogs. So this is by the, if you go through my feed, this is what I'm going to actually end up seeing. right? There is the occasional dog video because me and my daughter have a habit of watching dog videos, at least one or two every night. So all my feeds will have a dog video popping. But a lot of it is around AI, a lot of it is around tech, a lot of it is around motivation. But whatever you will consume all this content, but if you have not taken home something, what's the point, right? So writing it down solidifies that learning and makes you stronger. By the end of the year, you have learned 365 new things. At the end of 10 years, you've learned 3,650 new things.
Yeah.
And I don't know anything else that will compound faster than that. I hope
Yeah.
that's a good or a good
I
line.
love it. I may actually implement it myself. And the thing is, when you learn one thing, it's not the one thing. You already have 25 things in your mind, and it's that one thing that is connecting to those things and amplifying those things. And so it really does. I can see that compound effect truly, coming to life. But thank you, Ashwin. It was really nice meeting you, getting to know you a little bit better. And I look forward to a lot more conversations. Maybe your wife should be on here next time.
Thank you for having me. This was absolutely fantastic. I love interviewing people, but I also love being interviewed because every time somebody interviews me, it actually unlocks something in my head. It unlocks something new all the time. Right after when I reflect on the conversation, it will unlock something, some learning. Will by the come out of this? By the something I write at night today will have come out of this conversation. So thank you for that.
That is my big why behind doing all these podcasts. So thank you.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.